Well, sometimes it's about asking questions and listening.
Mm,
So if we just say it's a gentleman comes in, like yourself, you said you get a bit overwhelmed, and often guys they don't have as many strong ideas about what they want,
mm,
and they might say, and I say, look, what have you had in the past? And I try and get a feel for whether they've had metal frames or plastic frames. Do they wear them all the time? Do they put them on and off all the time? Because if someone's putting glasses on and off all the time, you don't want a frame like mine that doesn't have any springs because
mm,
they will stretch over time. It's natural,
mm,
and you've got to be a bit more careful with them. So if it's got someone that's a bit lackadaisy and they say, "Oh, I keep sitting on my glasses, I keep breaking them, I keep losing them," then
mm,
maybe we don't want the most expensive designer frame.
mm,
So maybe we want a cheaper generic frame that we can replace readily and get parts for readily, or if something goes wrong, or we look for one that's got some sort of technological advantage, some physical advantage. And there are frames with spring hinges that have got a single spring, which means it's got a weak point and it can snap. And that's the most common breakage we get in frames is spring sides that break, and they're often in the cheaper frames. But there are cheaper frames with triple lock joints,
mm,
which have got so much more strength and they're much harder to break. So if you've got a guy that's rough on his glasses, I'd go for a triple lock joint, which
mm,
is a bit more solid. It's going to work really well. They're not expensive, so they're easy to replace if something goes wrong or they lose them.
mm,
Or the next thing is maybe they keep crushing their glasses because they take them off and put them around their neck. In which
mm,
case, then sometimes we look for a memory metal frame, like a Flexon frame or a Eschenbach frames that are made out of memory metal, and those ones will bend in half and they don't break. So if you put them in the neck and you put your seatbelt across, that's often what crushes glasses and bends them. But a Flexon frame won't do that. Or if they're a motorcycle rider and they wear helmets all the time, you don't want a thick pair of frames like mine with thick tips because they won't go through your helmet because they're too tight. But a flexible frame like those memory metal frames, they feed through because they're like a thin wire that's flexible, and you can feed those into the helmet. So again, that gives you a couple of different ideas. Someone that's rough with their glasses, we might choose left or right. We might choose a heavier hinge, or we might choose a super flexible frame. Someone that uses a motorcycle, we might steer towards a flexible frame because we know that's going to work better. So I was going to say ladies are different because ladies have got an idea of their look that they want, and
yeah.
sometimes that's a historical bias view because they've got a view of themselves when they were 20.
Mm, mm,
And that's not a harsh comment, it's just a real reality comment. When
mm,
I think of myself as 30. I'm not 30.
mm.
That's 20 years ago, but I still in my brain, I think I'm a 30-year-old. So I think we've all got a little bit of that in our own
Yeah.
psyche. And as such, sometimes we've got to talk to people and show them how a frame that they wouldn't
Mm,
try
mm.
may be more visually pleasing and uplifting to someone at 50 than it is at someone at 20.
Sure.
Does that make sense? There are certain frames that you try on a 20-year-old and it's wrong. It just doesn't look right. It does the wrong effect on their face. But you try that same frame on someone with a slightly older face or slightly more mature face, and it looks great. So you've
Yeah.
got to match the right frame with the right age bracket. And that's up to our staff to sort of lead you in that direction and do it in a gentle way that's not
Mm,
pushy and not insulting, and it's not meant to make anyone feel bad about it.
mm.
So, and sometimes we show people and they go, no, that's hard. No, in which case that's it. We stick with what they want. And occasionally it's not to our taste, but it's to the patient's taste, and that's okay.
And then there's that whole discussion about whether you've got, the shape of your face, whether it's more rounded, more
Mm.
narrow, heart shaped,
Yep.
and you've got skin tone and hair color. So all of those things come into play as well with your team when they're helping people select glasses, don't they?
It does, and it's a bit simplistic about the shape of the face.
Mm,
Like it doesn't always work. Like
mm,
I've had someone recently, and they said they've got a heart-shaped face and they wanted an oval-shaped frame to match it, and it looks wrong.
mm,
It looks like I was putting a frame from the 90s on them, and it just looks dated. It's wrong. It's not a good look for that face. But that's the rule that they'd read about. That's the rule they wanted to stick to. And it was something we tried to work with, but we tried to show them comparisons between what their look is and what we would suggest and say, which, do you find one looks better than the other? And and she chose some suggestions from us and changed her shape a little bit. In terms of colors, then often there might be colors that are more winter tone or more summer tone. Sometimes people are after neutrality, some people are after color. And it doesn't matter. It's really what you want. And if you've got the personality and you're happy with color, then wear color.
mm,
You know, um, it's it's hard. Like we had Adam's dad in recently, and Adam's dad has always had fairly, from what Adam tells me, because I haven't known him for very long, he's had fairly fairly average frames, fairly standard frames over the years, and his way of being adventurous with a frame was to get, instead of going for a grey metal frame, he went to a navy blue frame. So,
Hmm.
small step, yep.
Yep.
And
Pushing
we
the
were
envelope.
a little bit, yeah, and we were trying on some frames, and Adam was trying on some frames, and they were pretty adventurous. They were different shapes, they were different colours, they were bright yellows and greens, and really, really out there. And I said, look, sometimes you've got to. My frames that I would wear in Hobart wouldn't be the same frames that I would wear in country Queensland.
Mm.
Because country Queensland, everyone's a little bit more conservative. So, as such, I'd probably dress a bit more conservative. I'd wear more conservative eyewear. Up down here, people are a little bit more adventurous, so they get away with a little bit more as well. And when I said that to them, they said, "Well, he works in a trucking firm." So balance is the question. Don't go too adventurous, otherwise, is there going to be comments from some of the lads saying, "Oh, look at those glasses," or those yellow ones or whatever? And I said, "Is that going to be an issue?" And if that's going to be an issue, then we don't go
Mm.
quite as adventurous. We tone it down a little bit, maybe have a bit of colour, but not quite so different a shape. And the frame we ended up choosing was actually a Varney frame. It was a new season one. It had only just been released. It was one of the ones that I bought from Giovanni. And it was a bright yellow metal aviator. And it had an insert of pale grey blue shell on the inside of the metal. So it had a little bit of a plasticky look. It has nose pads, which his dad really liked because he liked his old metal frames. So it felt like his old frames. They were lightweight, but they had a bit of pop of colour.
Mm.
And the only downside to it was they were yellow and blue, which wasn't the colour for his footy team. So, but he liked it. He liked it, and the family liked it. So that way we've got some colour, we've got a bit of adventure, but we've also tried to keep it something that's fairly recognisable as being a traditional frame
Yeah.
with a quirk. Yeah. And I think that's the way you sort of win on those things. You've got to
Yeah.
match with where they're going to wear it, what their workplace is like, whether they think they're going to get away with it,
Mm.
and don't push things too aggressively, especially for
Mm.
lads too.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I guess another thing that comes into play here is this thing that we've got in the middle of our face,
Yep.
the nose. And I mean, some frames can sort of fit anyone's nose shape a little bit better than others. Some
Yep.
some people have low noses, some people have big noses, some people have noses that aren't exactly in the center of their face, and so you've got nose pads. Some of your frames have nose pads.
Yeah.
Um, so how does that sort of come into the conversation as well?
Okay. If you're thinking about metal frames, they've got two nose pads and on little arms, and they are designed that they can be adjusted independently or asymmetrically, and
Mm.
they can be wider or narrower, and they'll fit a majority of noses. If you're talking about plastic frames, they have to fit the nose when you choose them. If they don't fit the nose, then they don't fit. End of story. You can't change it. Um, so the frame that I've got at the moment has got effectively a keyhole bridge because it's got a gap at the top, so it doesn't rest on the bridge of my nose. It sits on the sides of my nose, and that's what I tend to go for my nose because I've been wearing glasses for a long time since I was a young fellow, and I've got a slightly changed profile on my nose from heavy glasses sitting on my nose for a long time when I was younger, and I was wearing glass lenses back then, so they were heavy, heavy. So I find if I have glasses that don't fit me properly, then they can leave a little bit of a crease mark on my bridge of my nose. So I've got one pair of glasses that I've had made up at the moment, which are a police brand, and they're good. They fit really well. They fit exactly on my nose properly, and they are not a keyhole bridge. They touch the top of my nose as well as the sides, but they fit well and they don't leave a crease mark. So that because these were properly chosen. Yeah. The second option you've got with nose pad, and that's for ladies or guys, it's the same thing. It has to fit properly. And some of them have got a narrow bottom, and some have got a wide bottom, like the bright fuchsia one and the blue one I showed you before. One was wider that fitted my nose. The other was much narrower. So if you've got a little nose, you go with the narrow one. If you've got a bigger nose, you go with the wider one. And the other thing is keyhole frames come in all sorts of frames. Keyhole bridges come in all sorts of frames. So this is another pair of my glasses, which has got a grey top and a red bottom, and it's got a keyhole bridge again. So, and this is another pair that I wear currently. So, so having the right type of bridge is important. Getting it so it fits your nose is important. And occasionally someone will fall in love with a frame, and we come and review it and say, no, it's resting on your cheeks. It's gonna leave marks, or it's pinching your nose. It's not fitting properly.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work well. And we have to be the ones that say, look, how about we try and look for that, and we try and find it in a frame that fits you, the same look, but one that fits your nose better. And occasionally the same thing, we might have a frame that someone really loves, but it's outside the price bracket. So what we tend to do is we try and carry some funky frames that are in a cheaper price bracket as well. So these two frames that I've got here are from a frame range called iCraft, which is a generic frame range. It's a frame range I've been buying from for nearly 30 years. And they're beautifully made, and they're just cheap generic frames, cheap and cheerful. But styling wise, they're great. And these often look higher level than what they are. So if people find an expensive frame that they can't afford, then we try and find them one that looks the same in the iCraft range, you know. And they've got spring temples for some of the frames. These ones don't. These are some of the new ones. And these ones have got crazy stripes everywhere. They've got colourful layers going all the way across them, and all of these. And these ones have got a spring. So if you're popping your glasses on and off all day, then that spring's going to stretch and the frame's going to hold up to it pretty well.
Yep.
So that's the other thing we try and do is we don't try and make someone feel bad because it's outside a price bracket. We try and make sure we give them options at this price, we options at this price, we get options at this price.